Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Fighter Heart podcast. I'm Joe Rizzo, joined today by Jack Wallace. Thanks for joining us, Jack.
Happy to be on.
Awesome. So we like to get into it right away over here. So if you could just give us a little bit of your background, where you're from and whatnot, your upbringing a little bit, and then get into your Fighter Heart story.
Yeah. See, I'm originally from northern Jersey, Franklin Lakes, New Jersey. Yeah, born in a big family. Two brothers, one sister, all of them older, really outdoorsy, kind of an activity driven family. Um, Played a lot of sports growing up. Pretty much every sport you can name: baseball, football, wrestling, hockey, soccer. The list goes on, and yeah, I played ice hockey was always my favorite. I was a big New Jersey Devils fan. And then we were on a family vacation as we normally did. It was our yearly tradition to go to Lake George, New York, and camp out or rent a house or something like that, and just spend a few days on the lake around July 4th. And then one year, ended up getting into a boating accident while water skiing and losing my right leg above the knee. Spent 3 months in the hospital. Pretty severe trauma to me and my family, obviously. But we got through it. Got through the rehabilitation process. Got my first prosthetic, and I always thought once I got my first prosthetic, I could go back to playing all the sports that I loved, including hockey. And when I got home, the first thing I did was try to strap on my old rollerblades and skate around the driveway. And that did not work at all. Fell on my face quite a few times, and kind of gave up, and the realization set in that my life was really going to be different from now on. But then the following year, I found out about sled hockey. It's the Paralympic version of ice hockey, and started that in 2009 and met a guy by the name of Josh Pauls. He was 16 at the time. I was 11 at that point, and he made the 2010 Vancouver team, where USA went on to win a gold medal. He brought that back to our program in Woodbridge, New Jersey. Showed me and my dad the medal, and my dad just looked down at me and said, "What do you think?" And I said, "I'm in." So pretty much for the next decade, um, that was my dream and that was my goal, to make the U.S. national team and win a gold medal. And all that work, culminated in 2018, 10 years after my accident, in South Korea, Pyeongchang, at the 2018 Winter Paralympic Games. My teammates and I won the gold medal in a pretty great fashion. It was a really good game. We won it in overtime against Canada. That was pretty great. And
Nice.
then yeah, been on the national team since 2016 now. I've won 3 world championships, 2 Paralympic gold medals. The next one was a couple years ago in Beijing, 2022. And yeah, we're striving for another world championship right now. I'm actually in, where am I? I'm in Colorado for a training camp. Yeah, I'm in a hotel room in Colorado. So we're right in the middle of a training camp, getting ready for a world championship in May.
Very cool, man. I mean, that's a lot to get. I want to get on like a timeline a little bit. So to rewind, because that was a lot of past
Yeah,
one a few a lot of years there. So you said your accident happened in '08.
yeah, in 2008,
How old were you?
I was 10.
So you were 10. Do you remember anything about the accident, or is it a little blur?
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember it vividly until I blacked out. I was losing, I got struck by the propeller, so I was losing blood at a really rapid rate. Um, my
Well,
dad,
what was the circumstance? Were you like you said you were jet skiing, or what did you say you were doing? Sorry,
water skiing. Yeah,
water
so I
skiing.
ended up getting struck by the propeller while water skiing.
Oh,
Yeah, and it just kind of, for lack of a better term, shredded my right leg. So luckily, my dad applied a tourniquet on me as quickly as he could get me back in the boat, and that really saved my life because my femoral artery was severed and I was losing blood, at a lethal rate essentially. Over the next 3 days, I received about 7 pints of blood transfusions, which is more than an adult human body can hold. So I was losing blood for 3 days. I was in and out of surgery and the trauma unit the whole time. Yeah, they put me in a medically induced coma. Yeah, vividly remember it. Besides when I was blacking in and out.
So what's your first memory waking up after
Uh,
you finally controlled the bleeding?
yeah, woke up 3 days later after having some crazy dreams. But just woke up with my mom and dad were, next to me on the bed, sitting around the bed. My siblings were they were in the room, but they were kind of, off to the side. My parents wanted to talk to me one on one. They explained, they kind of explained what happened and the situation. And, I obviously looked down and I don't have a right leg anymore. Um, but props to them. They really kept a positive attitude. And, as a 10-year-old, I really can't take any credit for having any type of strong outlook, but it was really them that kind of pushed me and challenged me to make my attitude what's next? What's the goal? What are we doing now? And at that point, it was just, hey, let's get you healthy. We're gonna have some certain, I think I had a dozen more surgeries after that, probably more actually.
Mm.
Um, and it was just kind of let's get you healed up and let's get you out of the hospital. Let's get you home. And that was the first step. And then, that attitude kind of continued on throughout the rehabilitation process.
How long were you in the hospital for until you finally got to go home?
Accident happened on July 3rd, and the goal was to be home for school for when school started. I was going into fifth grade, and yeah, I was home Labor Day weekend,
Oh.
so about 2.5 months.
And what was it like right off the bat? I assume you started rehabbing at the hospital and outpatient, I guess.
Well, it was a solid month. In the I wasn't in the ER anymore, but I was still in the surgical center because I was getting for the first 2 weeks, I was getting a surgery every other day. And then the next 2 weeks after that, it was two a week. And then I finally got moved to a different hospital. It happened in Lake George, New York. So we went to a trauma center in Vermont and we switched hospitals. And then eventually we got back down to Robert Wood Johnson down in New Jersey, a children's specialized unit where I got my final two surgeries down there and then kind of just started. And at that point, I hadn't even gotten out of bed yet. I was still in a wound vac on my right side, still needed to do skin grafts.
Mhm.
So at that point, I was still healing, still figuring out all that different stuff. And then finally, once I got back, I think after the first week of being back in New Jersey, I finally got out of bed. That was the first time I even got, the first day I could barely stand up. I had so much muscle atrophy at that point. Um, and, they got me on a walker and I took a couple steps and I was like, I'm gassed. But then the next day I took a couple more steps. The next day, a couple more. Eventually I was going around the whole unit. But yeah, it was a grueling, painful process.
Was it like when you got home? When did you finally get your like prosthetic?
Yeah. So, the timeline on that, well, I got home September and then got my first prosthetic right before Thanksgiving or right over, that Thanksgiving break kind of. So I went to Shriners in Philadelphia because we didn't know any better. Turns out there were like three prosthetist and orthotist offices, within like a 10-mile radius of our house, but we had no idea. But it worked out that we went to Shriner, Children's Hospital, and kind of got that whole process started there because they were great and it was a pediatric unit, so it worked out really well. Spent a whole week down there getting my first prosthetic and kind of getting the very basics of how to use it and how to walk properly. But that was just the beginning. It took me another probably 2 years of physical therapy until I could, confidently walk with it and use it proficiently.
Oh wow. Yeah, I'm sure there's a learning curve on that.
Yeah.
Are there to this day, are there any like phantom pains? I've heard that before.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Phantom pains never stopped. They were pretty horrific when I was in the hospital. I mean, at some points I wasn't sleeping for days and days at a time because no matter what painkiller they knocked me full of, it didn't matter because it's not actually real pain. It's all created by your brain and nervous system. So, um, but eventually it subsides to a much more manageable level. But every now and again, I'll get it. You pretty consistently get phantom sensation, but now it's probably only a few times a month where it'll be like bad pain.
So it'll just feel like your ankle hurts, but obviously there's no ankle. It'll feel like it does the same way, like if you sprained your
No, I would, the sensation is kind of, I would make it similar to pins and needles, where it's
ankle.
almost like a little vibration. The pain is, I mean, it's a really, really sharp, intense, it's essentially like you're being stabbed in one spot or like someone's burning you with like a cattle prod or something. It's,
Oh,
it's, it's intense.
yeah, wow, I can't imagine. Jeez. All right,
And
well,
and the worst part is no, there's nothing you can do about it. Once it
yeah,
starts, you just have to wait for it to stop.
yeah, and it's really like convincing yourself, right? Because it's all mental.
Hmm.
Yeah, wow, that's crazy. I mean, you mentioned to go back, you mentioned sled hockey. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, it's the Paralympic version of ice hockey. So think of wheelchair basketball to basketball.
Okay.
Sled hockey is to stand up ice hockey.
Is it the same similar rules, like five
Yeah,
on same amount
same
of?
rules, same rink, same size equipment. Only the only equipment change are your sticks and your sled. You're obviously not using skates. You're sitting in a sled, and you
Yeah,
use your sticks to propel yourself. Kind of almost like in cross country skiing, where you use
yeah.
the poles to dig into the snow and ice and push yourself. You do the same thing in sled hockey. So you're
And
using your arms to stick handle and shoot, but also to skate.
so, how do you shoot with because they're to move you they're pointy, right? The sticks like skis almost, or
Yeah,
no?
on one end there's ice picks, and then on the other end there's the hockey blade part where you tape up and stick handle and shoot with. So when you're skating, you hold it at one end, then when you switch, you have to switch your hands to the other end.
Wow, that takes a lot of skill, I would assume. You got to flip it around. You got to like flip
Yeah,
it right
it's a
before
lot of
you
hand-eye
shoot.
coordination.
Yeah, wow, that's interesting. Was that hard to get used to? Did you grow up playing hockey at all? I forgot if you said that.
Yeah, yeah. I grew up playing a bunch of sports, but ice hockey was always my favorite. I
Yeah,
grew up playing street hockey with my brother, played roller
yeah,
hockey, and eventually organized ice hockey. So grew up playing hockey. And as soon as I got hurt, I wanted to keep playing, and lucky enough to find sled hockey in a local program. And yeah, and I got started right away, and I was hooked immediately. Was happy to be back on the ice.
yeah. Were you are you more of a scorer, more of a defender?
I'm
Enforce?
a I'm a defenseman. I like to jump up in the play a lot, but I'm a defenseman.
Yeah, yeah. And I assume it's like hockey, like you could hit people, right?
Yeah, it's full contact, same rules, same everything.
Oh, geez. Are there ever
Yeah.
fights?
Oh yeah.
Oh, jeez. Wow. Yeah, wow. I want to see that. I've only
Yeah.
seen, I mean, there should be like an ESPN for this, like some sort of ESPN for these kind of sports. Or is there?
Yeah. The Paralympics, they have a YouTube page and they stream a lot of our games.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, so you can look up a bunch of the games we've played, the gold medal games,
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
yeah, I'm gonna look that up. That's cool. All right, so to get back, um, what is your regimen like? Like a day in the life for you now.
Yeah, it's a full day of training. I'll usually the first thing we have early morning skates. So head to the eat some breakfast, grab a coffee, head to the rink. Um, then right now I'm also training. I'm training for a different Paralympic sport. I'm trying to qualify for Paris in a sport paracanoe. It's a sprint kayaking. So you're in a kayak and it's a 200-meter race. So right after the skate, I'll go to the lake and paddle for about 2 hours. And then after that, I'll head to the gym, get a lift in, and then head home, kind of hang out for a bit, and then at night usually do either sometimes a little more cardio or just mobility and stretching and stuff like that.
That's a full day right there. That's crazy, man. And that's every
Yeah,
day.
it's a full-time job.
And you love it?
Of course, it's a dream. It was always a dream to be a professional athlete.
Yeah, dude, you made it. Awesome, dude. I'm so happy for you. Sounds like you're killing it. What are your future plans? You know, like what's the ultimate goal?
Well, I mean, the ultimate goal was to win gold at the Paralympics, so I did that. And then kind of moving past that, it was, the goal is always to, be the best. And that was kind of the motivator after 2018 was to get to a level of being, one of the most dominant players in the world. Um, and then now I kind of have a new goal while continuing with hockey and trying to continue the dominance that this team has in hockey um, to challenge myself a little more to try and compete in two sports at the same time and become an elite athlete in two sports. It's a very select few that have been able to accomplish that. I've yet to accomplish it. But hoping to do so in May. The Paralympic qualifiers for Paris are in May, so only a couple months away. So that's kind of the big goal right now.
How do you train for that? You just go out in the canoe?
Yep.
Yep. That's
Same.
all
Yeah.
you
Same
can do,
thing.
right?
A
You
lot of
can't
the a
do
lot
it
of the
like
training, a lot of the training transfers over between sled hockey and para canoe between cardio and weightlifting. So the only specific stuff I do for either one would be, when I'm on the ice or when I'm in the boat. Other than that, the rest of the dry land training is pretty similar.
very cool, man. All right. Well, before we wrap up here, I'd like to know your number one piece of advice. You know, say there's another 10-year-old out there that sadly went through something similar. What's a piece of advice you'd give that person?
Yeah, my advice, my kind of my mantra for a long time has been you get out what you put in. So you can't expect things to happen without doing anything about it or putting any effort or work or time into it. Sometimes they do, but those are much more rare. But for whatever you want to accomplish, there is whatever that is. It can be as the biggest goal. It doesn't matter what it is. There is a you know on the let's say on the other side of the equation, there is an amount of work and time that you can put in to make that goal happen. So no matter how big you want to dream, no matter what you want to do, there's always a way to get there. So you get out what you put in.
Awesome, Jack. Thank you. I wish you the best of luck in Paris, and I know you're going to kill it in the next Olympic trials as well.
Appreciate it.
All right, Jack. Jack Wallace, thank you for joining us. Thank you, everyone else, for listening to another Fighter Heart podcast. We will see you next week.